Oh, hello. I'm Paul Robledo, and I'm not a historian. But today was a rainy Monday. A friend gave us this historical pamphlet, and it's written by somebody who is a historian and a local Farmville man, William E. Thompson. I never met him, but he's brilliant, and we've been enjoying this book a lot. So today what we're going to try to do is go down to Farmville, follow the steps as best we can of Robert E. Lee on the day, April 7th, 1865. Mr. Thompson calls it Fiery Friday. And so it's all really close. It's super cool. Come with us, and here we go. Oh, by the way, anything I get right was Mr. Thompson. Anything I get wrong all came from me. So let's give it a shot. All right, I am over the Appomattox just off of Main Street in Farmville, Virginia. And this would be where Lee rode in just before 6 o'clock a.m. on the Fiery Friday. He would have come over this railroad bridge. All right, the first thing Lee did when he came into town was to come and check whether the 7 boxcars of supplies were right here, and they were. So soon after that, Longstreet's men came in and they started throwing the rations off of the train right here down into this flatland. When we get up here, I'll look that way. And the half-starved men immediately started to set fires and cook their food down on this flat area. Again, the river's right over there. So Robert E. Lee saw that the trains were there and men were starting to get fed. And so straight up ahead is Main Street. We'll come right back. Okay, we're still on High Bridge Trail, and that's the first bridge that the supply train was between that bridge, and I turn around and there's Main Street. So it was right here, it was where the supply train was. Okay, still looking at the High Bridge Trail around the same place. This is Main Street. We just came from over there, and that's where the supply train was. Over here, where the green awnings are there on the corner, is where the hotel was. And we'll talk about that later. That's where Grant stood on the porch and inspected his troops for the last time. And that morning, back to the morning, when Robert E. Lee was satisfied that the supply trains were there, he got on his horse Traveler and went down Main Street this way, and we'll show you where he ended up. This is the home of Patrick Johnson, 304 Beach Street in Farmville. So Robert E. Lee rode from the check-in where the supply train was there over to here, and it was still just before dawn, and sunrise was at 6:50, so it was 6:30 or so. He came here, he met with his generals on the yard, and took a little nap on the yard, just laid his head down on his desk. But here's where he came that morning. Okay, this is the Patrick Jackson house that Robert E. Lee came and set up on the yard and met his generals and took a short nap. It's still in use today, and we'll show you what happened after that. Okay, this is the other side of the Patrick Jackson house. And so this is where Robert E. Lee stayed on the property on Friday morning. He came in just before 7 and had a meeting on the yard, the other side. And then in the morning, he went over right across the street and visited the widow Thornton. for a short time and then got on Traveler, went right down to the corner. All right, once again, here's Beach Street. Here's the street that, or the house that he camped on the lawn shortly. There's the house he visited the widow across the street. We're going to turn around right here at the corner and look down the street. Just beyond that box truck is where the rails to trails and where the train was. So we'll pick it up right there. So here I want to... So here I wanted to show how close the Jackson house was to where the supply train was. So that's from there to there, just beyond that boxcar, is the rails to trails. This is straight back down onto the rails to trails, and this is to show what a short distance it is that if he came straight down, which was like a block from the house he stayed at, onto the train track here. All right, we're coming back up to Main Street, which is just a short distance. And this is where Robert E. Lee saw the supply train still there. It was still feeding men. About half of the men had gotten fed so far. But the problem was on the ridges around Farmville, around 10 a.m., the Union troops were starting to gather, the infantry, and they started to shoot all around here while they were throwing the rations off of those supply train. All right, again, it's only a short distance. This is what this is where the train station was. This is Main Street. Right over there is where the supply train was. They were still feeding people when Robert E. Lee came down here at 10:30, maybe 10:30 that morning. But the Union troops were up on the ridges around Farmville, and they started shelling or shooting cannon at the troops down here being fed by the supply train. It was real easy to see back then because for some reason there wasn't so many trees. So it was getting rough. The train engineer, Robert E. Lee went to the other side of the river. It's right over there, right over that bridge. It was getting rough over here. The train engineer started backing the train up. And that's what he did. He backed it up all the way that way to Pamplin. And the next morning, Union troops took the train. But he backed it all the way up to Pamplin. And then, within 2 hours, Grant is going to be here. And all right, here we are by Main Street on the rails to trails. This is just a short distance from where Robert E. Lee stayed on the yard. He came down, he saw the supply trains were still there and they were still feeding people. And about half the men had been fed at that point. It was then that they started getting bombarded from the hills around Farmville. Up there, they could see real well because all the trees weren't here at that time. And so they were lobbing things and creating havoc over here. Robert E. Lee saw what was going on and moved himself and ordered his men to get to the other side of the river and then to burn the bridges. Oddly enough, within 2 hours, right here on the corner, Grant will be standing on that porch. So Robert E. Lee's here now, and within 2 hours, Robert E. Lee's going. He's on the other side of the river, and Grant will be right there. And the Union troops are going to take Farmville. And they had a fun and exciting night, but they were terrorizing the people of Farmville. Okay, Lee had just crossed the river and he made his way not too far to the Thaxton house here, where he met with the Secretary of War. So now he's having all his men come to this side, the north side of the river, and he's going to burn the bridges. He had a meeting with his Secretary of War here before heading to All right, here I am at Cumberland Presbyterian Church. This is where Lee went after his meeting and his men to camp. I imagine he showed up here early afternoon, maybe 2 o'clock. And then there was a battle with the Union troops at 4 o'clock. It lasted about 2 hours and it was about even. So they lived to fight another day after that battle, but there were more coming. And so they camped. And at 9 o'clock that night, General Lee received his first correspondence from Grant. And it said, let's stop the bloodshed. You need to surrender. And so he asked his General Longstreet, and he said, not yet. So that not yet cost a lot of lives, but that happened right here, and he got the first correspondence while he was here. That night, with heavier Union troops on the way, they bugged out. They got the heck out of town, and they left this area and headed towards Appomattox.